You need to be able to delegate. And how do you delegate? I've always had a problem delegating as well, but in order to delegate, you need to increase confidence. How do you increase the confidence, right? This is what executive coaching is about, is unpeeling all the different layers of the onion to get to the core, where your full potential is holding your team accountable, hiring the right people. Do your people know what success and what winning looks like on a per day, on a per week basis?
Hi everybody, Gavin Coyle. I'm the Gaffer back again. I have a brilliant guest all the way from New York today. The great guests just keep on coming, and this guy, he's a superstar in his own right, because we love people that have been on the journey of construction, lived the journey of construction, and then are given back in some form or another. And that's what Jerry Alberti is going to talk to us about today, because he's got a very exciting company based out of the States called Pro-Accel. And they help construction owners, especially even the guys in the small to medium enterprise, in around the areas where most risk is today, in terms of construction and people going out of business and all the risks that go with that. So we're going to unpack a lot of things with Jerry. He's a massive experience. Like, he's been on major general contractor jobs up over 300 million in terms of the size of projects that he's been on in the past. But now he's given back in the form of mentorship and support. And if you're listening today, think about the fact that you don't need to have a board of directors, but you do need to have somebody that's going to hold you accountable. And you do need to have somebody that's going to, bend your ear a little bit and say, look, I thought you said you were going to build, 20 houses this year. You've only built 2. What's going on? Or how come you're still using, paper for timesheets or no timesheets at all, or whatever that is? He's a guy that will go in and find the problem and then work with you and get a roadmap together in order to get you to where you need to go to. Jerry, welcome to I'm the Gaffer. I'm looking forward to unpacking a lot of stuff with you today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this, and the way you introduced me, that was awesome. It's so important for growth, So I'm excited.
Yeah, so am I. So let's get straight into it. Like, give us the background of the Jerry Alberti story to get us up to speed to where you are today.
Yeah. So I've always been, I always knew I was going to get into construction. I've been in construction for over 22 years. When I was a little kid, I was that kid in the backyard building stuff, with all my dad's scrap wood. So, I actually went to high school and majored in architecture. I went to a trades and technical high school, which is pretty unique in my area. Then I went on to college. I studied civil engineering. I switched majors. That wasn't for me. I actually got a degree in architecture with a minor in construction management. I went on to go work for a company that pretty much had all civil engineers, right? So I've been in the New York City construction market for over 22 years. Well, I would say 19 out of the 22 years that I've been I've been practicing my career, ranging from heavy highway bridges and foundations. And then, I made a couple of moves, and next thing you know, I was talking to, glazers and roofers and dealing with door schedules, right? So I have a really unique background. I've always worked for self-performed GCs, which is becoming a dying breed. So I managed my own crews and I managed my own subs, companies ranging from $100 million to $1.5 billion a year. I manage, like you said, several $100 million of my own projects out in the field and lead roles. I've also been privileged enough to be a senior estimator, where I estimated over $12 billion worth of work, leading my own estimators and my own crews. My single largest project was a $1.25 billion project in the middle of COVID, right? So imagine getting $20 million vendor pricing where prices were only good for 7 days on a 4-year project. Wow. Talk about big conversations. So, I got the entrepreneurial itch a couple of years ago. I took the untraditional path, and I've always been a part of strategic development, implementing initiatives. So consulting and executive coaching has always been a natural path for me. So I created Pro-Accel a couple of years ago, and, my biggest superpower, like how you said before, is having those hard conversations and pushing owners to take the chances that I took on myself, and helping them understand that they have a lot more potential than what their subconscious is really telling them that they have, So, it's been a real fruitful couple of years, and I'm really excited to see where things go in the coming years.
And in your own words, why do you think construction owners need someone like you? Obviously I tried to explain it on the intro in my own, theory of things, but what's your sort of story in terms of why people need this service?
Because it's lonely at the top, Gavin. It's real lonely there, and people hire their executives and their VPs, but let's face it, their opinions are very biased, right? They got their favorites, they got their vision of where they want the company to go because it benefits them. Now, I'm not saying that everybody is completely biased and they don't love the company. Of course they do, but naturally their opinions are going to be biased based on their own personal limitations as well.
Yeah.
You're the owner. The banks are calling you. When you accept an award, a contract, and you sign a contract, you're writing the check, not your VPs.
Yeah.
Right. So you need to have someone who's not biased to any department and within the organization as well, who can really help you reach those limits and make better decisions as well.
Yeah. Like it's from the podcast point of view, from our podcast point of view, one of the main reasons we set it up was because we could see that a lot of the owners were actually time poor and didn't have time to go back to college or go to, events to keep themselves up to speed, because they were just literally so, absolutely absorbed in their own businesses that they couldn't really get their head out of business. How are you finding that in terms of the challenge of when you meet these owners and they go, what do you mean you want to take me out of business for one day a month?
I would say that is the number one reason why a small contractor gets stuck at that small, or even a mid contractor gets stuck at the mid and can't get to the next level, is because their identity becomes that business, right? And part of their identity is taking care of the fire drills throughout the day, taking care of the grind and being in the weeds of the day to day. So in order to get to that next level, you need to be able to delegate. And how do you delegate? I've always had a problem delegating as well, but in order to delegate, you need to increase confidence. How do you increase the confidence, right? This is what executive coaching is about, is unpeeling all the different layers of the onion to get to the core, where your full potential is holding your team accountable, hiring the right people. Do your people know what success and what winning looks like on a per day, on a per week basis? What are those structured meetings? How are you tapping into your crew on a per week basis, where they're coming with certain deliverables to that structured meeting? Let's just call it, for argument's sake. How do they know that they're winning, and how are you holding them accountable so you can not be a part of every operation, every decision, but rather focusing on the things that are really truly driving your company forward? And how that looks for you is different for any company. What works for one company may not be working for you, or may not work for you as well. So there's a lot of questions that need to be asked and answered for each of those topics that I just brought up.
So is your process to go in and do some sort of a form of a gap analysis when you meet the owner first? Like, say, for example, I reach out to you, Gavin, I'm the Gaffer roofer, and I need help I've had a couple of bad hires, and my confidence is on the floor because I actually have no confidence in people anymore because they've let me down so badly. And one of the first things I'm going to say to you is, I'm happy to have a chat with you, but don't try and convince me that I need to take on staff, because I'm after getting burnt. So how does that conversation start with you?
Well, believe it or not, I know you're giving me this example, but this example is what happens often, right? A lot of people just want to shift from being a specialty contractor to a GC and just hire people as well. I know plenty of one of my drywall clients is hiring other drywall contractors to do that. But every conversation starts off with a no-cost, free conversation. Let's get to learn and let's make sure we can work together and feel comfortable together as well. Let's start diving into the operations. Let me try to give you some solutions to some low hanging fruit, right? From there, if it makes sense to move forward, it normally goes into some kind of a discovery phase where I either come to your office, or if it's something that's very particular, we can, perform it on video calls. And then from there, if you need help with implementation, we take that next step. Or if it's just straight up executive coaching, which I'll be honest is kind of where my business is really going. It's strictly Zoom calls or video calls, or maybe jumping on an airplane every once in a while to come visit you and get all the leaders in a room and make sure everybody's on board with the implementation and changes that need to happen. So I don't have a one size fits all, Gavin, but construction that's what's so great about construction. It's not like owning a pizzeria where, you got your secret sauce, but the operations itself is pretty much the same no matter where you go, right? It's different. Every contractor runs a different business. I work all around the U.S. predominantly, and every geographical area, every city has got its own challenges, right? You got your own pool of resources as well, right? There's some contractors who have no problem hiring a project manager. There's some contractors who haven't been able to hire a project manager in 2 years because of their geographical, location. They're in the middle of the Midwest in farmland, so it's different.
Yeah, we had a guest on the show a good while back, and I loved their model because they said they wouldn't go outside something like a 50 square mile radius of where their headquarters was. Something that small, and so it made sense because they were in a rural part of America, not rural enough that they couldn't survive, but they were able to attract people because the people that were actually from that town or from that area had to go outside of that town or whatever to go to work every morning. So they were leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning to be on the job like at 7 o'clock later on. So the fact that these guys were local was a major attraction, and they used that to their advantage in terms of, that's a good marketing tool for them to try and attract labour, to say, look, we won't be bringing you across state or into a different country or whatever else. You're going to be working home, near your home, and you're going to be home to your family, at a reasonable time. Like, there is brilliant initiatives that I've seen. You just have to you have to just think outside the box a little bit, Jerry, as well. That just because somebody else is doing it doesn't mean it's the right way to do it.
Gavin, if I could just add one thing, I speak to contractors on every day on any given day, and there's $100 million a year contractors who are at this hump, and they tell me, Jerry, I need to start traveling outside of my state to get more work, and who have built $100 million a year company just staying in that localized area. I've talked to many contractors who are at 10 million, who built their business to 10 million because they're willing to travel in the surrounding 5, 6, 7 states, and who admit that they can't get to 10 million unless they do that. So again, back to what we said before, and to your point of what you're saying, what works for one contractor is not necessarily going to work for you. But that's where someone like me comes in and us, and we start analyzing, well, there's these opportunities. How does this opportunity look for you? You need to first understand your strengths and your weaknesses within the organization first, right? So you need to really get clear on your true identity as a company, as a brand, before you can start pursuing that. Because if I could just add one more thing, when I speak to a lot of regular mid-level employees, a lot of them complain that the owner is taking on way more than what they can chew, right? And they're not being vocal with their employees, and they're going to different geographical locations. And now they started working for a company where they knew that they needed to only travel 30 minutes to a project. Now they're traveling 2 hours to projects.
Yeah, I see that. I see contractors, and I randomly see their trucks or their vehicles and go, really? Are they working this far away from where their HQ is? Like I think if people got their accountants or got their financial guy together and said, put a spreadsheet together, tell me how many hours we're spending in company cars or vans or vehicles outside of a project, and let's put a cost onto that and see where we're at, and then kind of just look at the waste that is done in that regard.
And with AI nowadays, you can run those spreadsheets through AI and it comes up with all different kinds of trends, and it searches the internet and compares it to industry standards. So, AI is extremely powerful when it comes to creating spreadsheets and creating trends to help you make better decisions as well. And it's certainly something that I try to help any of my contractors with as well, because it's just, guys, if you're not jumping on the AI train, you're going to get left behind, and it's moving fast.
Yeah, no, we just released an AI tool free to all of our own people and our clients. And like one of our biggest clients, they seen it and they were like, oh yeah, we've been asking for that in our own company for a good while now. So can we get access to yours? So, yeah, it's free. Go ahead, because like there's no point in telling them that like, oh well, I'm going to put you a charge on that for it, because if I don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. And it's AI is doing it everything anything anyway. So you might as well be upfront. And I know there's a discussion at the moment about people have to put AI generated on certain topics in order to say like this podcast, which it isn't, by the way, is AI generated. But no, this podcast is not AI generated. But there's some podcasts are, which is frightening. But in terms of another strategy I was thinking about when you were talking, Jerry, which is great to have you bouncing some things off, is, I don't see enough people being brave enough to maybe go out and buy another company. If you feel that you don't have the resources and the tools, or maybe if you are going out of state or into a different region, rather than shifting your whole business model and trying to replicate it, to look around for, good value in a company that they could go in and buy, considering the value that we get with all the assets, the contracts, and the people.
Yeah, I mean, I come from a very big heavy civil background, and I love working with heavy civil contractors because I mean, I work with all types of contractors, but heavy civil, I can really dig deeper into their operations. And many heavy civil contractors, they think to make more revenue, they need to keep expanding their construction business, which of course there's opportunity there, right? But what you could also do is create a more competitive advantage by purchasing a recycling plant, because you typically always have recycling materials, or you need places to dump, or you could purchase a hauling company, right? Or right, yeah. So and there's so many different avenues you could go, and you're diversifying your portfolio because your competition is going to be using your plants. They're going to be using your trucking as well, right? So hey, if you're a construction company and you lost that $30 million bid and it went to ABC Construction, that's your competition, you're still going to make money off that bid because they're going to be probably going to your recycling plant and using your hauling company as well. So there's different ways to corner the market. But a lot of people don't have that. They don't have that mindset because they're so bogged down.
Yeah,
right?
no, I see that 100%. I see it more as a confidence thing, where I go, geez, I'm not that big that I'd be able to go out and buy another company.
Well, it's mindset too, Gavin, right? So maybe sometimes they need that extra push to let them know, hey, you know what? You got what it takes. You got enough money. You got enough cash flow. You got what it takes, so.
Yeah. Like, just, would you have a sense of how to value a company when you're advising CEOs or executives?
Well, that's different for any company, but I'll be honest, I really don't dive too deep into something like that. I have my own resources that I reach out to as well to kind of give me some feedback on that as well. But, just to give you a really quick example, I was talking to an electrician a while back, and they were sitting at about 5 million. And he's like, in the next 5 years, I want to go to 100 million. Well, after a couple of conversations, I realized he was pretty much paying his payroll on a per week basis. He just didn't have any cash. You can't go from 5 million to 100 million if you only have 1 week's worth of payroll in the bank, right? So that's to the extent. So now we need to dive into why your cash flow is so far behind. Long story short, he never really hired me as a consultant, but I could only imagine his mindset, the way his people were managing the project, the lack of process, the lack of structure, the lack of a streamlined business is his number one problem, right? All of that combined, and it's a matter of peeling back the onion and kind of finding out where do we start and breaking it down into actionable goals for each quarter of the year to go into a cash flowing business. Then from there you could start thinking about going from 5 million to 20 million and so on.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. So if I'm sitting at like a 10 million turnover business, what sort of cash flow would you deem healthy for to be sitting in my bank account on a regular basis?
I mean, I think the rule of thumb is an easy 4 to 6 months worth of payroll you need to have in your bank. Now, what does that mean? There's a difference between having let's call it 6 months of payroll when you have no backlog, no money coming in, and then there's a difference between 6 months of cash when you actually have the backlog that you have at the time of the conversation. For me, I'm a cautious person right now. I know you need to be risk diversified. You need to be able to take risks to grow your business. But for me, I would like to see you have 6 months of almost no money coming in to pay for your payroll. Or at a minimum, what's the threshold, right? To me, the threshold is, okay, if you're a large company, every large company has their A team, their B team, and their C team. Well, how can you get by 6 months by getting rid of your C team and your B team and letting go of them, right? If stuff really hits the fan, and I don't want to curse on the podcast, but if things really get tough, right? If the economy really tanks, if you're a small company, your entire team is your team, and that's it. Whether you look at them as a C team or an A team.
Hi guys, as you're enjoying this podcast, I just wanted to take a few seconds to let you know about my company, Coyle Group. We're not just another safety recruitment agency. We're your partners in building a safer future. With over 25 years of experience and more than 1 million hours of safety work completed, our mission is clear. Provide top-tier health and safety contractors tailored to the unique needs of your project. We also carry out on-site construction audits. From wind energy to power stations, utilities and engineering projects, our global reach and specialised expertise ensures your operations are not just compliant, but exemplary. For more information on how ensuring safety and sustainability of your products using our team of HSE contractors, visit coyle-group.com or click on the show notes or video description now. I've also put a booking link into the description for you to click and have a one-to-one conversation with me. Now, back to the podcast. Enjoy and see you soon. Again, back to I see so many guys out there without a business plan, and I know I keep on harping on about it, but I just can't get my head around the fact that people don't have a business plan. I mean, you talk to them, they laugh at you and go, "Yeah, I know what my business plan is. Get to Friday, and hopefully by Monday everything will be all right."
Not terrible, right? Oh my gosh. How do they sleep at night? It's great. Well, they don't sleep at night.
They have that easy go, lucky sort of attitude, and sort of they are smart and they do care, but they're in this lonely world where they just drive on, and they think that because they have this reputation for respect that's enough to get them over the line with more and more work. And that's not the case, as you know, and I know, and I think the whole world found out through COVID and through the 2007-2008 crash, when literally the phone stopped ringing. What are you going to do? And it's probably another topic for you to give us your insights in terms of crisis management and risk management. Are you seeing many guys there that don't actually have a plan for the downtime and for the bad days?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I just want to add one thing. A lot of owners they're so accustomed to being an operator and within the business And then when they go to being a business owner, they just lack the skills of structure and leadership and think, hey, you know what? When I need a new super, I'm just going to keep hiring the super, and the super from my competition. If from my competition, they're going to know exactly how to do things, and that's not the case, right? Because the way you want things to be done is one way. The way your competition does things is another way. That's why you got to put a process to your business as well, and let everybody understand, hey, this is the way I do my thing, right? As far as crisis, mitigation, okay, back to the U.S. economy, right? 2024, we had a major presidential election. Well, naturally, construction declines towards the third and the fourth quarter of any major election year. If you were to put together a good strategy at the end of 2023, you would have been able to understand that you would have had less backlog the third and the fourth quarter of 2024, and you would have created a mitigation plan that is not so reliant on that, and possibly alter your staffing requirements and your employees, where you can mitigate and get through that third and that fourth quarter before 2025, right? So that's the perfect example of creating a strategy, right? So, I perform a lot of SWOT analysis with a lot of my clients as well. It's been tried and tested. All the major players do it. Your strengths and your weaknesses, which are internal to your organization, opportunities and threats, which are external. Your threats are things that you cannot control. Perfect example, what I just mentioned, was an election year, right? What else is happening? You look at the economy, the whole world is we're inching closer and closer to World War III. I mean, what's going to happen? I mean, no one really can predict that. I mean, not to be doom and gloom on this podcast, but these are real conversations that you need to be having,
Yeah, 100%. 100%. 100%. Like, seasonality is even another risk, especially like air conditioning, for example, brilliant in the summer. What are you going to do in the winter?
Right. I mean, here in the Northeast, right? If you're a heavy civil contractor and you're out, the winter months are going to slow down. You know how many contractors are hiring right before their slowdown because they picked up a lot of backlog, and they think that the owner that just awarded them a project is gonna get them to mobilize during January. You know what? It's just certain conversations that sometimes they're so in the nick of the weeds of the business that they just don't have they don't have. And these are the conversations that I have with them. Was like, you hire slow and you fire fast. Although there's a little bit of a gray area with that, right? If you got an A player that's looking for a job, then you hire fast, right? So aside from that, is you got to hire slow and fire fast. And what does the fire fast look like? There's got to be a probation period, right? But that's aside from you miscalculating when your backlog is actually going to start as well. So don't take on that overhead. But you got to be able to get out of the weeds of things and understand what your growth strategy looks like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the line. And then understand where your vision is 3 years down the line as well. But you need cash flow to get there. You can get by without profits. A lot of people get by without profits for a couple of years because they reinvest in the business, right? But you need cash flow. Cash flow is your lifeline. Cash is king, and you're not going to get by with 1 month of cash flow in the bank. You need to know what your financial stack is, right? What's your cash? What's your line of credit look like? And what's that third line of credit that you could possibly pull, and understanding what good debt is and what bad debt is as well.
Yeah, and like as well as I do, all the merchants and providers, they all talk to each other. Like they genuinely do talk to each other, even though they're in competition. Maybe they're able to turn around and say, look, Jerry Alberta's in trouble. Just let you know, he's probably got about 3 months left. So if you're supplying him, get out of there. Do you know what I mean? Like, and that now all of a sudden, there's the word on the tarmac is that you're not good for a check, and that you're going to go out of business. It's a small industry enough, the construction industry. Like, everybody generally does get to know everybody else, and once it starts slipping, and it's not. There's no coming back from it. Like it's a very lonely place.
Hey, once in a while I get a message and says, "Hey Jerry, reach out to this person. They can really use your help." But at the same time, there's people that call me and they need a lawyer. They don't need me, right? They have so many outstanding net 90, net 120, net, net, 180 days, well, you need to start leaning projects and you need to contact a lawyer. And then when you contact your lawyer and you get your money, then from there you can hire me and we can figure out how to keep that from happening, right? But it also starts with understanding what a top pursuit looks like within the organization. I think a lot of people get into that because one, they just don't have the business background to understand accounts payable and accounts receivable, and two, they're just taking on any pursuit that comes their way as well.
Without doing the evaluation of, do I have the capacity? Have I got the resources? Do I have the competency? And do I have the energy to actually take on extra work?
The energy is another thing too, right? Are you feeling burnt out? I mean, listen, a lot of people want to follow the, a lot of people want to, if, listen, a lot of people want to show off, right? A lot of people want to show that they can make it from 20 million to 50 million. I would rather you be at 25 million and make 20% profit than be at 50 million and make 10% profit, right? It's double the risk and the same amount of money.
Yeah. So, I'm thinking as well when people come and talk to you, like, do you generally get most of them saying, look, I'd rather work less in the business and I need some family time, or I need to switch off time, or I need is there a way that, I can pull myself away from the business more and not have to be, part of the whole 70 hours a week grind? Do you have many of those conversations with your clients?
I think to the core of all my conversations is, hey, I'm scaling, and one of my clients told me he was on the verge of having a heart attack. You know how many contractors, let me tell you this, you know how many contractors have called me and have told me, and they're in their 40s and 50s, I'm on my third heart attack? Why are you waiting so long? You don't have all the answers. What you don't know, you don't know, and I think a lot of to the core is, hey, I'm reaching a plateau and I just can't get out of my business. But what blows my mind is I just don't know if I have time for consulting and coaching. Well, my goal is to help you understand how to free up your time. So stop thinking short term and start thinking long term. I'm really big with long term thinking. I've given up a lot of opportunities in my own personal business because it just wasn't a part of my long term strategy. So I gave up money because I'm thinking long term, right? And I think that's how a person has to build a sustainable business, to stop thinking so short term. So to answer your question, to the core of why people call me is because they've hit a plateau, and typically it's along the lines of time and structure within the organization.
I don't think we place enough time, enough emphasis on our own personal time, and to your message. Like, and obviously, mental health is a big thing in construction, also, and substance abuse is also a big thing in the construction industry. But I think if we value time enough, and if we look at time as an opportunity, that here's an opportunity for you to have more time for yourself, for your family, as opposed to running yourself ragged and killing yourself into the ground. In terms of a business risk, that should be up in the top 3 on anyone's list.
Well, why do we become business owners, right? Is to get
why
that
do
money.
That's the thing. Why do we? Let's have a discussion about that. Why do we become business owners?
It's to have that flexibility. I mean, I used to be in New York City by 5:30 in the morning to get my jobs going. I was at the gym this morning at 7 a.m. I never had that luxury, So but you have to, you have to understand what is important for you. You mentioned substance abuse before. That is a major problem. Mental decline is a major problem in our business. We are in a very, very, very stressful business. It's a very competitive business. It requires an insane amount of your energy, insane amount of your mental capacity. It requires you to move fast on any given day, right? There's the whole saying a New York minute, right? I mean, being in the middle of New York City, while you're trying to manage a project, you're getting cursed at by the people that because you're causing traffic behind them, right? So you're dealing with all this, and then you're trying to go home and you're trying to be present with your family. It's very difficult. It's very difficult to do all that on your own. I mean, I'm hearing more and more companies are actually hiring full-time therapists to actually provide therapy to their own people. It's a problem. There's a lot of people committing suicide, substance abuse. It's a major problem, and these are conversations that we need to have more of as well.
Yeah, and it's another risk on the risk register in terms of and where should the risk register where should it be? If you're listening to this show, I'd have that risk register plastered all over your office wall, so that every time you go into the office and you see it, you go, don't want that. Definitely don't want that. Definitely don't want that. And I think we bottle it up, Jerry. We put it in our heads or in our little pocket in our heads. That's turn a blind eye to it. No, I'm not going to go there because I don't want to. I don't want to go there because I don't like that. I want to stick with the nice shiny things like a brand new piece of plant coming into the job, or that lovely drywall partition that's just after going up, as opposed to dealing with the reality. And I suppose that's what you guys do is that you pull them back in and go, here, by the way, there's a mirror here, and if you don't look at it properly, it's going to come and crack, because you don't have the right system structure and whatever that is in order to protect yourself. So in terms of a new business, would it take you a couple of months to get things moving in terms of under the table and restructured, or or is it just feel it as you go type of a scenario, or what's your roadmap basically?
Well, every company is different, right? Executive coaching, you get results right away, right? You already start getting challenged right out the door. When it comes to restructuring an entire business, I mean, again, it depends on size, right? So I have clients that have one project manager and one super and one estimator, which is a lot easier to get everybody on board. Then I got clients that have a dozen supers, a handful of project managers, an entire accounting staff. It's a lot harder to do that, and that's more long term. I can promise you this, you'll probably see, and this is, I was actually at a big tech expo about a year ago, and there was some really big tech giants there, and they said something about implementing new software that I think is perfectly aligned with implementing any kind of consulting, is you're probably going to feel paralyzed, or you're going to feel like you're going backwards before you start seeing the ROI and that you're moving forward. Right. So if you're a small company, you'll start seeing an ROI right away because it's a matter of jumping on a couple of Zoom calls, and you got a couple of people on your Zoom calls, and hey guys, this is the way the business is going. It is what it is, and okay, well, let's do it, right? But if you're a large organization, you'll probably start feeling a little bit stuck before you start feeling like things are moving forward, because you got to find your first cheerleaders. I call them cheerleaders, your first implementers, people that really believe that change is necessary. You got to work them for a little while, which takes a couple of months. And then they're going to help you start grabbing onto other, that next team. So while someone like me grabs onto the next team, they can grab onto the next team. And then from there, it starts to compound. And that compound interest becomes greater and greater and greater. And it could take 6 months, it could take a year, it could take a couple of years, But it starts with understanding and discovering what really is the root cause of everything, not just putting a Band-Aid on stuff as well.
Yeah. And in terms of structure, I see a lot of owners where they hold on to things too much. What would you say would be a great first hire to, a small to medium enterprise company? If you're speaking to the CEO and you say, right, in order to relieve some pressure off you, I think your first hire should be.
Well, okay, so if they're a mid-sized company and they have like a full staff of PMs and a full staff of supers
I would suggest that maybe there's 10 in the company, and in order for them to take on an extra job or an extra bit of capacity, he's going to have to grow. And and he's probably overwhelmed. He comes to you and he goes, okay, where do I start? I'm
Well,
going with this contract.
Gavin, I think that really depends on that particular contractor situation, right? If it's if it's if they're feeling like they're dealing with too many fire drills, it may be the role of a senior PM or a fractional COO or a project executive that can start handling all your field operations, so you can focus more on business development and estimating and bringing on more people, because typically that's where an owner should be at, is the business development and establishing a relationship. But if they're not getting enough backlog, then I would say an estimator as well, right? Or if one of my clients, we deemed that a business developer would be more suited for them as well. So I mean, it's a tough answer. It's a tough question to answer, because it really does depend on that particular contractor situation as well.
Yeah, no, like I love the idea of the fractional CFO, and I think that's not enough people do that.
CEO, right? CFO or CEO or COO, right? Or even a fractional senior project manager. There's so many resources out there now.
Yeah,
I think COVID has created this phenomenal opportunity now where you can conduct business. I mean, I worked for a $1.5 billion a year company, but that was an international company. When people tell me everything's got to get done in person, I kind of, I don't believe it. We were making multi-million-dollar decisions on Zoom calls, right? And it worked perfectly fine. You're telling me a company like Amazon, the owner, Jeff Bezos, isn't making multi-$100 million a year, he's not making tens of millions of dollars a year of decisions on Zoom calls. Come on.
Yeah. No, 100%. And like, it's an angle for people that, if they are struggling and you don't have the confidence in the recruitment process, or you think, recruiters are this, that, and the other, and the resources out there is a great angle to bring in, contract people, even for 6 months, or just on a project, like just to help you out on a particular project on a contract basis, so you don't have to take them on a full-time basis. Or you could, then if worked out, you could turn around and say, by the way, do you fancy coming on full-time here? Because I do see a lot of people retiring out of the game in construction, and if you talk to most of them, they all say, you know what, I wouldn't mind doing a day or two a week just to keep me foot in the door, and use it as extra cash for the retirement fund.
I mean, absolutely. I have clients, and I've had clients that are $100 million, $50 million, $100 million, and they do work all within 30 of the 50 states. You think that they're high-paying people are working right directly next to their corporate office? I mean, if you got to step out of the old school way of doing things if you really want to build your business, right? And there's many ways you can manage your business through Zoom calls, is by creating expectations, is by creating KPIs that each individual role and each title needs to be delivering for the company every week. Who cares if they're doing it within 5 hours, they're doing it within 10 hours or 15 hours? If they're delivering on expectations and they're delivering on their KPIs that's helping the company move forward each and every week, let them have the freedom and not micromanage. And most will be willing to give up some of their salary to have that flexibility as well. Now they need to be, a super needs to be on the project, right? Project manager doesn't necessarily need to be on the project every single day. So you need to know the roles and the responsibilities. I mean, listen, an estimator needs to be communicating ongoing. So there's different guidelines for each of that. And again, it goes to what your niche is and your geographical location as well, and what your vision of your company is for as well.
Where do you see yourself with your business then, Jerry? What's your plan for the next 5 years, 3 to 5 years, or what's your big grandiose plan that you have in your head or on a piece of paper?
So my plan is to grow an elite coaching program where I'm dealing with really, really top executives and CEOs who really want to get to that next level, both on their personal mindset, but also their business shift as well. I'm going to continue to build the consulting side of the business as well, but I really want to build an elite coaching business where I'm dealing with a handful of top performers who really want to go big places in their business as well. Right now, I'm a solopreneur. You hire me, you get me. Where that's going to go in the next couple of years, I really don't know. But I don't want checklist consultants and young people young and inexperienced who are going to come to your office with a checklist, right? I want you to get top value. And that's where I think things are going to go for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a market there in terms of CEO level, that's, they're giving all of their energy and on all of themselves every day to the business. And I think, if you talk to some of them, they'll definitely tell you, look, I'd love to be able to do something for myself, more self-development for myself. Or, and I love the fact that you brought in the personal side of things, because you can't do one without the other, I don't think.
No, you cannot. Gavin, a couple of years ago, I became very depressed. I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning when I was working on my salary job, and I lost my sense of purpose, and I went to work, and every hour I had to just go into the bathroom, and I kind of just put my head down and say, what is happening here? This isn't the life that I want. And it took me a long time, and I pushed myself to start my business, and it takes a really, really, really strong mental mindset to get to that point, right? And this is kind of where I help a lot of my clients, because I've lived through that. I really know how it is. I know how it is to work for a fantastic work culture. I know how it is to work for a terrible work culture. I know how it is personally when you're not feeling like you're living your dreams, and you're not feeling like you're pushing yourself and trying to find that purpose in yourself as well, So I bring this passion to my coaching clients as well, because it's so important. There's the business side of things, there's the managing and the leading side of things, but there's also having that person who can kind of be that person that you can open up to, who's not biased to your business, who's not biased to your family, right? Therapy is just, hey, tell me how you feel. I'm not a therapist. I'm a coach. I'm like, hey, let's understand what your vision is. Let's understand where you're at today. And then, of course, your vision, where you want to go. And let's start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And let me help you build that strategy. But you need to understand your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And you need to find what's going to push you to that next level as well, right? So there's the personal side of things, and there's the business side of things as well. And that's where I want my business to go. I love what I do. I'm very passionate. If you're watching this, right? If you're listening to this, it's one thing. If you're watching it, you could see me throwing up my hands. This is the energy that I bring to my coaching calls. And any of my clients will tell you, they're like, I need you to start talking to my other executives and give this. One of my clients told me, he says, Jerry, I got on this call and I was so tired. He says, now we're finishing the call. I feel like I need to walk around the block a couple of times. I got so much energy, This is the passion I like to bring, and that's where I want my business to go,
Oh, well done. A few curved balls at you, Jerry, then.
Sure.
Knowing what you know now, Jerry Alberti, what would you do different?
In the sense of what?
It could be in your life, and it doesn't have to be business. It can be in your life.
Oh, that's an awesome question. I would have probably I started my business when I was 40 years old. I would have probably started my business a little bit earlier too. I think I pushed myself to that brink of possible collapse way too far into my business. I would have started a little bit earlier when my kids were younger as well, which would have took a lot of pressure off of me as well. I think as far as the business aspect, there's that, and I'm just glad I went the career route, the salary route, and I didn't start my business too young, because I help my clients help solve the problems that were problems for me that I lived through. I've seen the consequences. Consultants get a bad name because they're career consultants. I'm not a career consultant. I've been in the shoes of the very people that are dealing with the very challenges that you're stuck with. So I've seen the consequences of bad decisions, and I've seen the ROI of great decisions. I've lived it, and that's what makes me powerful at what I do. And I think that's what gives me, well, not that I think, I know that that's what gives me a competitive advantage.
No, it definitely comes across. Favorite book or movie or both?
I would say my favorite book is not construction related. It's what kind of pushed me to go from salary and start betting on myself. It's a book called The Middle Passage by Dr. James Hollis. It's a difficult book to read. I listen to it as well. It's like you got to go back on a couple of chapters and re-listen to it. But you know what? I call it so people call it the midlife crisis. I call it my midlife awakening. It was like, holy crap. I got to look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, stop blaming where I'm at because of other people that are in my life, and stop thinking that other people are going to come save me. It's up to that person that I'm looking at in the mirror to make the changes. And no one is coming to save me. And no one got me to where I am today because of my decisions. And I think that book really helped me transition and become more confident and pushed me to really get past, and hey, this is my midlife awakening. I'm not going to spend the next half of my career feeling sorry for myself.
Plus, it's much cheaper than a Harley Davidson anyway.
Yeah, exactly, right? Or a nice Corvette or a Mustang, which I'm going to buy one day. I am going to buy one day.
A point of interest about you, or something of interest about you that not many people would be able to say, I didn't know that about Jerry.
Oh, man.
Oh, it's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Wow.
Something that not many people would recognize. You either did something, or I don't want to know anything illegal, obviously, but
I really don't know. I'm a very straightforward person. I mean, this is what you get. I don't hold back. I'll be honest, a large part of what I do is helping contractors have hard conversations, and that requires me to have hard conversations about who I am as well. I mean, listen, I suffer from anxiety and depression just like a lot of people as well, and I think that's something that I don't really speak about, and I think that's probably the best thing that I can say is, hey, don't think that I'm not struggling with what you're struggling with. Because I am, and maybe that, you know what, Gavin, I think you're pushing me with that question right now. That maybe I should start opening up to more about that on my own personal level as well.
We don't have to be crying and taking out, handkerchiefs, but you do need to have a sense of vulnerability. And thanks for sharing that with us, Jerry. It does, I think when you go into, if we're going to talk about working with top executives, everything has to be on the table. I have weaknesses, you have weaknesses, and if you're in a safe place, it's good to share it. Now you're not in a safe place because a couple of thousand people are going to listen to this. I'm only messing. It's about being vulnerable, and it's a credit to you for sharing that with us, because it shows that you're able to talk to these top executives, and you've got your own challenges, if you like.
I mean, we're all human, right? I mean, listen, if you're not looking for a real answer and you're looking for an inhuman answer, go on ChatGPT. It'll give you plenty of answers of your thing. But if you're looking for someone who can really connect with you on a real human emotional connection, it's we all need to get vulnerable as well. But I mean, if you want to be a true leader and you want to really get to that next level, you got to be willing to have really hard conversations. And I think that's my competitive advantage. I'm not scared to have those conversations. I'm not your guy if you're not willing to step out of if you're not really. I mean, listen, to be a business owner, you got to be uncomfortable often, right? But I'm really going to challenge you with mindset and so on.
You got to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Jerry, how do they find you? Where does people go to find you?
Well, one, you can go to my website, www.pro-accel.com. I'm hot and heavy on LinkedIn. That's my main marketing source. So find me on LinkedIn. Find me through Jerry Aliberti, or you can go follow my company name as well. But my personal name is where I get hot and heavy. And you can send me an email, Jerry with a J, Jerry at pro-accel.com.
Jerry, it was an absolute pleasure having you on the show, and look, we'd love to have you back in the future because I enjoyed that conversation. I think you've got a lot to offer, and definitely when things get a bit more mature in terms of your one-to-one coaching at CEO level, it'd be interesting to see some of the case studies that come out of that.
Oh yeah, I mean, I already have a couple of clients as well, and I've had a couple before that. So I mean, it's already well on its way. But absolutely, Gavin, thanks for having me on this podcast. I really enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, have a good one. Take care, Jerry. Hello, gaffers. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We love every one of the guests that we have, but in order to bring on more great guests, we'd love to build a channel with you. So hit the subscribe, hit the like button, and let's create a really great community where we bring in better and better guests for you to deliver great content and great pieces of information that you can take back into your business.